podcast d'Anglais in France, des séjours linguistiques, anglais en France et FLE en France.
Good afternoon, here is always Nixon, and welcome, bienvenue à cet nouvel épisode. Un épisode particulier parce que ça va être totalement en anglais. So this episode will be all in English, the first one, as we have as a guest Oxford Uni student called Nadia. Nadia, to begin, you could introduce yourself for the listener.
Hello, my name's Nadia. I'm 21 years old and I'm currently reading a degree in French at Oxford University, specifically at Trinity College. And I'm at the moment here as an intern at Anglais in France, working in the administrative department.
So, and as I already said, and you said you are Oxford Uni student, one of the most prestigious universities in the UK, and with all the degree that Oxford offer, you choose to study French. And why do you choose to study French then?
So a funny story of how I chose to study French was that when I studied it for GCSEs, for what our version was, the brevet, essentially, I chose French because I either had the choice between French and Urdu. So I decided to choose French as sort of a pathway at the beginning. And I completely started to fall in love with the language and enjoyed learning it. And the reason I chose to do French specifically at Oxford was I really enjoyed doing English literature at A levels, which is the equivalent of the BAC. And the Oxford degree is literature heavy. So it has, so essentially it's sort of a degree that's more or less French language and literature. So whilst learning the French language, I'm also studying French literature. So I'm doing two parts that I also love. So I love learning languages, but I also love reading literature, and being able to study that is, I don't know what to say, is sort of I don't even know. But yeah, I really do enjoy it.
That's the important thing, if you have like a passion for what you study. But yeah, I have another question, which is a bit like maybe a misconception or stereotype. How is the social side of, we are Oxford student, and yeah, how is the community life there?
I think the misconception is because Oxford is a very prestigious university and studying there is very intense, that we don't actually do a lot of socialising. We apparently just study all the time, which isn't true. The social life at Oxford is very interesting. So just as normal students, we also love to go out. We also love to go clubbing and party, have drinks, etc. But there are also lots and lots of societies that people can also get involved in. So I was involved with the African Caribbean Society very heavily in my first year. Then I joined the Students' Union at my college, which is called the JCR Committee, as the JCR president. I also got involved with doing volunteering work because that was part of my scholarship. So I was teaching maths to Key Stage 2 kids. So yeah, I think like there's plenty of things to do and get involved in, which you can really enjoy. I know there's hundreds and hundreds of different societies. There's even a Harry Potter one that I nearly dabbled in, but didn't quite. So the Oxford social life there's a burst of things to do, and it is enjoyable. And there's definitely an aspect also of good communities at the colleges as well, just because each college has its sort of own sort of student union, own sort of community, so it's quite can be quite tight knit and close through that as well.
So you speak about the fact the student in Oxford have like a social side too. And so my next question is about your workload, because like every student, you need like to manage your timetable and stuff. So how did you manage your workload, and how was your workload? Because I think it's different also for subject by subject.
Yeah, it definitely depends on your subject. The workload is intense, so usually post sort of A levels. students work at university is usually kind of have a sort of lower workload because you have more time to spend on doing different projects that get graded. But at Oxford, it's very different because our terms are 8 weeks long, so they're very short. And within those weeks, we have assignments to do every week that's due the following week. So, for example, for my subject, I have an essay that's due every week, and I have translation from French and into French. That's due every week, so 2 translations. Plus, I have probably reading for an oral class. So over one term, I will usually do sometimes I might even have 2 essays that's due a week. So usually do between 8 to 10 essays, plus 8 translations from French, plus 8 translations into French, plus 8 sort of pieces of work for an oral class. So you're consistently working because you've got quite a lot of, you've got loads of deadlines and you need to manage your time properly. Luckily for me, my workload is one of the ones that is lighter than others. I know people who do 2 languages sometimes might even have up to 12 to even 16 essays during a term, plus on top of their language stuff. People who do medicine and things like that, they're in the labs longer and have more contact hours, so they have less time to do their immense amounts of work. So it does vary depending on subject, but even for mine, where mine's considered a lighter subject, it is heavy.
So right now, if I understand, you are like you need to go in your 3rd year.
Yeah, 4th year technically, but yeah, continuing from 2nd year, so yeah, kind of sort of 3rd year.
Because you went for a year abroad, right?
Yep, and that was compulsory and part of my course.
So, you will back like for your 4th year in September, and so you already been 2 years in Oxford, actually. Yeah. And how do you describe your experience so far after?
I would say for me it's been particularly interesting, just because Oxford is a university where there are you're exposed to a certain group of people, which I would kind of consider to be sort of the elite of society. Their parents sort of will be people that work in very high profile jobs. So essentially what I mean by the elite society, I mean there's a lot of people that go to Oxford that have come from private schools. So it is a complete different background that you're exposed to, especially if you used to go to a state school, which is completely different. So yeah, it's that's what I would kind of describe it as.
And do you think, like, you speak about private school elite, and do you think these environments help also for networking?
Possibly. Depends. I think it depends on the society to sort of get involved in, which is good for networking. Do I think Oxford definitely opens doors and provides you opportunities? It definitely does, from just having the name on your CV. So in a way, also the people that you probably graduate alongside on will literally go on to do amazing projects. So in ways, if you know the people who've gone to the same university as you, it does provide you with good networking opportunities. That being said, Oxford does have people from a whole host of different backgrounds, so not just people from private schools, people who've also gone to state schools, people who come from different ethnicities. We do have a huge international community as well. So it is varied. Just compared to other universities, we do have kind of a very high number of people who come from one particular background, I would say. So for some people, that's great. And for some people, that can be a bit of a polarizing experience, which sort of was what I felt during my 2 years, because I didn't really kind of feel like I fitted in somewhere. For example, at my own college, I'm the only black person in my year group of about 80 people. So in ways, sort of the college community in ways can kind of sometimes hinder sort of your relationship. Sometimes it can sort of help them in ways to become stronger. Sort of what my Oxford experience sort of reminds me of it being kind of, feels a bit like sometimes like sixth form, because you're in sort of small colleges because it's a collegiate system. So yeah, it's not for everyone is what I would say. And people go there for different things. Some people go there for the traditions. Some people go there obviously for the academic side. Some people go there for the prestige of simply having Oxford on their CV. So I'm trying to speak as frankly as I can about Oxford, because I wouldn't want to sort of paint a rosy image of the university when it isn't always like that.
Yeah, sure. We speak in the previous episode a lot about how the French education works and how the students apply for either for university in Grande École. But can you tell us more about the English British system? So I do some research about the OCAS and the personal statement. So can you maybe share your experience for applying to get into Oxford?
I don't know if things have slightly changed, but back when I was applying in 2018, so basically we have a system called UCAS, which is what all students who live in the UK use to apply to British universities. So on UCAS, you would have to submit as a basis, you would have to submit your personal statement and to apply to university. So a personal statement is where you'd be writing, it's essentially equivalent of a letter de motivation. You'd be writing about why you want to apply specifically for your course. And the same personal statement is sent to the up to 5 universities that you could apply to. So you have up to 5 choices.
What was your 5 option then?
My 5 options, so Oxford, Durham, I applied to St Andrews, Warwick and King's College London. Not all of them, I hadn't actually had the opportunity to visit all of them, but essentially I applied to universities which were very, very good for teaching languages, and all the courses I applied for were French. So you don't have to apply to the same course for every university, but UCAS, how the personal statement system works in UCAS is that the same exact piece is sent to those universities. So let's say if I wanted to apply to just French at Oxford, but maybe French and Arabic at another university, I would actually have to fit in talking about French and Arabic in the same statement that's sent to that university. Some universities let you send an additional piece, but mostly you would send just the one. Then for Oxford specifically, the reason I actually applied so early, because I think I sent our application beginning of October, is because Oxford and Cambridge, and I think medical schools have earlier deadlines for applications than the other universities. So I actually had to have my application sent off to all 5. I think was around 15th of October, I think was when I had the deadline. So, because after that, for Oxford, you most likely would sit an exam. So I had to sit a grammar exam for the language I'm applying to. So it was only for half an hour. And then afterwards, they would review that with the pieces of work that I had sent them. Because for Oxford, I also had to send them a piece of work from my English literature A level. And also a piece of classwork that I'd done in French, so a French literature essay as well. So after they reviewed that, I got an invitation for an interview, and then in December I stayed at Oxford for about 3 days, and I had my 2 interviews there. And then in January, I eventually got the results. So I got accepted to Oxford, and sometimes, all the universities on UCAS, they will reply to you at different times. So I knew that I was accepted, I think, into Warwick and King's College London very early, but I found out Oxford in January, and I think I found out St Andrews maybe a week after. And then afterwards, from those 5, you have to pick. They give you an offer because you will have not got your grades for your A level or equivalent of the back. So you have to select 2. So you'd pick your first choice and your second choice, and then the others you'd actually have to reject. So I picked Oxford as my first choice, and I needed a minimum of 3 A's. And then I picked St Andrews as my second because I needed AAB. So you're usually told to pick your second choice needs to be the grade boundaries need to be lower. So I couldn't, even though I liked Durham, I couldn't pick Durham as my second choice because they wanted me to have the same grades as I did for Oxford. So it wouldn't have made sense. So yes, that is essentially how the UCAS British system works, and my brief experience of it.
Sound. You speak about your experience and your statement, but I want to speak more about your experience in terms of memories. You speak about basically in September will be like your 4th year, I would say. So what's your best memory so far at Oxford? If you can share with us.
Oh, that's a bit of a hard one.
Maybe, I don't know, project or something.
Yeah, it's what I'm thinking of. I probably would say my best memory or sort of my proudest moment, I would say at Oxford, is when I was JCR president. It was a very difficult period to be able to work as president when we had to discuss sort of COVID regulations, because at my college specifically, rules are stricter than actually government guidelines and government law. So it was a tough time, but I was able to persevere and actually, and I was very proud of what I achieved. So one thing I had done was that when colleges were not allowing students to come back to university, so even though some of the universities in the UK, it was very easy for students to go back and stay there. For Oxford, it was very hard line. It was very hard, and because they adopted a hardline approach, because it was dependent on each college and it's how they interpreted the government guidelines. So majority of people weren't able to come back. And what I had done to counteract that with other JCR presidents was that we wrote a letter to an MP, I think it was called Michelle Dolan at the time, I think she was the minister of the university. So we'd written to her, and we also started a campaign on the government launched a campaign on the government website that received more than 10,000 signatures. So that was a moment I was really proud of, and would say that whilst it was a difficult time, it was one of my best memories at Oxford thus far, I would say.
Cool. And we speak about you just share your one of your best memory at Oxford experience, how to get. But do you have maybe any advice for students who maybe hesitating to come to Oxford?
The number one advice I would give to you is that do your research and attend an open day. So when I had attended the open day at Oxford, I was able to ask all the questions about the course, as well as just kind of see what university life would look like, which was important to making the decision whether Oxford was the right university for me and for it to be my first choice. So definitely do your research. For example, when I was deciding whether I wanted to apply between Oxford and Cambridge, at Cambridge I knew that I needed to pick 2 languages. So it would have to be French and a language I could pick up from scratch, maybe Spanish or Italian, etc. Whereas for Oxford, you could apply for just one language, and the course was more literature heavy. Whereas at Cambridge, you could do a bit of everything. You could maybe learn Greek and maybe do some history or sociology on the side. The degree there was more flexible. So from that point on, I had to make a choice of which course was sort of right for me. I decided the Oxford system was. For people that are hesitating as well in Oxford, I would say to think long and deeply about whether you could personally manage the workload that they give to you, because it is immense. The terms are very short; they're 8 weeks long. One thing that they aren't very clear about is that if for your first year, you're most likely to live on college site, but you are charged for the 8 weeks that you stay there for each trimester, sorry, and then you would have to move all your things out and go back home over Christmas and then move everything back again. So it's stuff like that where you need to kind of think, as much as the university may be amazing and the course might suit you, it's those type of things where practically for you they'll work, because there will be a nuisance at the beginning. Afterwards it sort of gets easier, and also when you're going to Oxford, do your research on the college you want to apply to, because the college is important. So when you apply to Oxford, you apply to a college, you don't apply to the university. So I had to pick a college and I applied to Trinity. Sometimes for different people, what makes a difference is how big the college is, how many students are in there, how many years of college accommodations offers. So some colleges will offer you accommodation for about 4 years of your degree, so you never have to deal with private rent. Some colleges will force you to live out maybe during a second year where you have to deal with privately renting. And for some people, that's different things. Those things mean different things. Some colleges offer more financial support than others. So my college offers a lot of generous bursaries that we can access to buy academic books. I was even once I had lost my AirPods. And I was able to actually buy new ones thanks to my university, thanks to Trinity, because they counted for it being used for noise cancelling. So there's things like that you might want to consider, because they say to your college choice doesn't really matter, but in my opinion it really does, because it is quite a big part of your degree at the beginning, when you're sort of settling in and things like that. So yeah, it's just I think it's doing a lot of research is required to figure out what is right for you, and whether Oxford is fit for you, and if so, what college you'd want to go to and where you'd want to be.
So you speak before you mentioned COVID when you mentioned about the fact of your best memory and how you deal the time with COVID. So I would like to ask you about the student life with COVID and without. Which are the main difference you found?
So I had 2 terms without COVID at the beginning. So how would I describe student life without COVID and with COVID? I think the biggest difference with COVID was that realizing your college has a lot more jurisdiction and say of what you can and cannot do. It does feel like, it felt a bit like you were in secondary school with your teachers telling you off. That's what student life felt like with COVID, because, for example, let's say the government allowed up to 6 people to meet indoors if you're from different households. At my college, they banned that. So if you could only socialize with your household. So you were which was based off, so your household was based off where you lived and which floor you were on, etc. So that meant you were very constrained in ways. So it did feel like you were a bit like in secondary school and you couldn't really make those decisions for yourself. So student life with COVID was very halted because whilst we had to kind of be forced to sort of do more things outdoors. And for the summer that was fine, but for the winter it was quite depressing. People that weren't able to see their significant others, people that weren't able to sort of see their friends because their friends lived in different places. It just wasn't a very fun year overall for people. It also brought out, I think, the worst in people as well, because everyone had different morals about COVID. Some people wanted to follow college rules to the T, whereas some people said, I don't really want to follow these rules, I'd rather follow what is the law, and if the law allows me to meet XYZ people, I want to do that, you know? And so that kind of caused sort of moral dilemmas, and there was a lot of drama and people did fall out. So it was a very intense period. I myself did not enjoy it as much compared to what student life was like before, where when I first started, people would go out a lot. So during the week, which was a bit weird for me to get used to, the club nights at Oxford used to be, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it was in the middle of the week. So that's what people would do. There were a lot more societies and events going on. So I was involved very much in organised sort of career panels, and as a sponsorship officer for the African Caribbean Society. I also would go every week to go and do my volunteering in person, but that had to transition to being online after COVID. So life was very different. I can't really comment on what life is now at Oxford, because there's sort of been this shift of a return to normality whilst we've learned to live with COVID, and obviously restrictions have now been completely entirely abandoned in England. But yeah, life during COVID was not very easy, but life before was obviously a lot more enjoyable.
So you nearly complete your degree, just 1 year left, and do you have any future plan after your degree at Oxford?
I think my plan at the moment is to apply for a master's in France. So I specifically want to do a master's in management in an école de commerce. So I'm going to apply to 3 business schools. So I've done a lot of research so far. I've picked 3 schools that I want to apply to. So I just need to sit an exam beforehand in order to complete my dossiers for the application, as well as obviously write the lettre de motivation. So that's my plan of what I want to do. And afterwards, from that, I maybe want to stay in France, maybe travel a bit more after doing a master's. But that's kind of what I have on the cards at the moment.
You seem to have your future plan really clear. So thank you very much for sharing your experience, and good luck with your study.
Thank you so much.
Merci d'avoir écouté cet épisode de podcast jusqu'au bout. Si vous souhaitez nous poser des questions sur le sujet ou simplement suivre les actualités d'Anglais in France, je vous invite à nous rejoindre sur le site AIF, sur Instagram ou sur LinkedIn par exemple.